Hello and welcome back to what is the second to last episode of the Jurassic Park San Diego build. We're almost there. We've almost done it. This has been way too long of a park build just because we had stuff with the DLC and then also I was making all those shorts and this took way too long. I had a bit of a break from Evolution as well, but now we're back in it and I'm really happy with where this park is going. But it's interesting because this build has some of my least favorite enclosures I've done, but it also has my favorite enclosure that I've done, which is at the end. Funnily enough, I was going to say I saved it for the end, but I didn't. It was the final enclosure I built for this video. And this whole park build is set to 600 speed, or 600%, so 6 times speed, because the raw footage altogether was about 3 hours long, which is quite a while, and a lot of that time is me like iterating on designs and then changing them, but still, it was like I got a lot done in this video pretty much. I completed the main section, I want to say, and then all we have left to do is around that kind of weird rocky bit in the kind of middle of the map type thing. That's it. But yeah, I cut it all down by removing some of the bits that aren't necessary and also increasing it to 6 times speed. But for the last enclosure, because I love it so much, I actually changed it back to about 4 times speed, just so anyone who's interested and maybe seeing why I like it so much and maybe using the idea I had for their own park, they can get a better idea of what I've done. Because when you have it at 6 times speed, it's kind of hard to follow because it is going so fast. I'm trying to show you a lot of what's going on in a short amount of time, because I don't like these videos going on a long time because you're less engaged and that's not good for you, not good for me. I'd rather keep you engaged for, 20 minutes. 20 minutes is usually what I aim for. This is going to be about 25 with the little showcase shots at the end. But yeah, I'm banging on about this last enclosure a lot, but this, I don't know if any of you remember, but a few months ago now, God, it would have been back in I want to say like September or October of last year, I did a video called my 20-minute exhibit challenge, which I don't think I'm going to do again because I've got an idea of something that could replace that, but it was a bad idea. But if there were any that I'd like to do, it would be of this enclosure, because the reason why I did that 20-minute exhibit speed build thing was because I wanted to give you guys ideas for enclosure design as well as improving my own enclosure design. But I'll be doing separate videos for that now anyway, because I didn't like the format of the challenge, because you shouldn't limit yourself on how much time you spend on an enclosure. And that's true for this last one that I've done, because I spent, I'd say, like about 40 minutes on this enclosure. I spent a long time just doing this enclosure. No, it would have been like maybe half an hour or something. It was a long time anyway, just for one small, well, not small, but medium-sized enclosure. But it turned out so well. It's a dimetrodon exhibit. I kind of wish I'd put a medium carnivore, because I did in the adjacent enclosure I put Changosaurus. I kind of wish I put Changosaurus in the one where dimetrodon is in, and then put maybe a large carnivore where Changosaurus is, but I can't be bothered changing it now. It is what it is. But yeah, I love what I did with that enclosure. But I'm going to shut up about that because you'll see that at the end. You'll get to enjoy that. Maybe I'll stop speaking by then. It depends how much I have to say. But yeah, the enclosures we got done here were just a small mini enclosure that I'm happy with how it turned out with. I didn't mind that one. We have a Velociraptor enclosure, which I'm about to work on, which I don't really like. I'm not a huge fan of. It's kind of, so what I have for the Velociraptor enclosure, the style I went for, kind of like a rocky kind of area, is similar to what I went for the dimetrodon enclosure, but less time spent on it, a bit more rushed. So you really get to see the difference on when you spend a lot of time on an enclosure versus when you're just trying to rush through an enclosure. And the difference is crazy. I mean, it just goes to show time, just spending a lot of time on something really does pay off. But yeah, here we have a Velociraptor enclosure. I decided to go for one viewing gallery because two just made it too small. It made the enclosure feel really tight, where one opened it up a little bit more. And I decided to put a viewing tower in by the little garden. You're seeing it coming up now pretty much. I decided to put a viewing tower in here because in my mind you get a view of both the T-Rex enclosure and the Velociraptor and the Mini-Me's really. But yeah, after moving on to that, we go to a large herbivore enclosure, which is my idea for that was like a salt lake type thing. So it's similar to the dried up riverbed that the T-Rexes have, but instead this has a large open pit where it's meant to be like a salt lake. It's all evaporated and it's all salt left behind. And there's a few like little diverging areas where a river once was. And there is like a little puddle for water. And we can kind of pretend that the dinosaurs in that enclosure were bred to be salt tolerant. So they can drink the water and, you know, it's fine. They're not getting dehydrated or anything from the amount of salt. You know, they're not losing, you know, biology stuff. I could go into detail, but I can't be bothered. And I don't think you guys would be too interested in that. This is a video for a video game after all, and not a science discussion. So yeah, I'll leave the science out of it. But yeah, it's okay. I mean, I feel like, again, I was just kind of rushed through that enclosure because there was so much I wanted to get. There was so much I wanted to get done for this video that I kind of neglected some of the enclosure designs, which I'm not too happy with, but you know, it is what it is. I wanted this to be the second last video for this series, and then we got one more, and then I'll do the tour. But I'm looking forward to moving on to a new park. I'm thinking of starting up 2 new park builds, one being a live stream series, the other just being a speed build series like this one. I have an idea for one, which is probably going to end up being the live stream build. But for the other, I'm not too sure. For the speed build series, I don't know what map I'm going to do. And I don't know if I'm going to go for a certain theme. But we'll see when we get there. Still probably a little over a week away before I get to doing that. But yeah, I also made an aviary for some pteranodons. Love the JP3 pteranodons. It's a shame we don't have any of the Lost World ones. They would have fit perfectly here, but alas, it is what it is. I'm pretty happy with the aviary. I kind of took on I don't know, it's weird. I used the ginkgo trees, so it's kind of like a tropical type temperate. I don't know how to describe it, but I'm happy with how that turned out because I pretty much flooded the aviary. I put a tour through it. The same tour that goes through the Salt Lake enclosure, so it looks nice because it's all like flooded and there's trees growing up, and I use those new rocks that are like the grey moss covered rocks that look really nice. Surprisingly, it works really well in this environment when you use it in a flooded enclosure. It actually looks really nice. Or maybe it just pairs well with the ginkgo trees. I'm not too sure. I may do like an aquatic, you know, a piscivore habitat down the line where I use a similar enclosure style, so we'll see about that, but I'm not too sure yet. I haven't really thought about what we're going to do in the next speed build. And then after the aviary, after the Salt Lake, we move on to our final 2 enclosures for the speed build. One is the Changosaurus one, which is like a deserty, like a desert plains. I don't know how to describe it. A lot of cacti, a few like rocky outcroppings, very hilly, kind of like dunes, but they're not like sandy, you know, they've got foliage on them. So I don't know how to describe it, but that's where I went. Probably my least favorite enclosure I built on this map. I'm not a huge fan of it. I wanted something different, and I got that, and I'm like, it'll do, I guess. But it's just very plain. It's not exciting to look at. I may add in a few more Changosauruses because I didn't realize how small they were compared to the size of the enclosure. Hence why I wished I put a large carnivore in there, and then the Changosaurus and the dimetrodon enclosure. But, you know, like I said, I can't be bothered changing it. It is what it is. It's not hard, but still. I kind of like the dimetrodons in their enclosure. And yeah, like I said, the dimetrodon enclosure is meant to be a better version of what I did for the Velociraptors. So a lot of kind of rocky areas with varying levels. And at the top, they've kind of like, it's all sandy and there's foliage growing on there. And then there's rocks scattered around. And like I said, incredibly happy with how that turned out. I can't wait for you guys to see it. I just can't stop looking at it. It's great. It's amazing. But I'm gonna stop tooting my own horn here. I'm sounding real egotistical, but yeah. One thing I'd recommend for park building is looking back on your old parks or your old enclosures, whatever, guest areas, it doesn't matter, and kind of seeing what you like about them, taking aspects that you liked, and then looking at things that you didn't like about them, and then seeing how you can change that to make it so you do like that. So for example, for this park, I could go back and look at my Canada Dinosaur Reserve, even though they're very different parks, because that's meant to be, you know, the biomes are incredibly different, that being set in the tiger biome and this being in the desert. You know, it's hard to draw that inspiration, so I looked more towards the guest areas, and I realized I was wasting a lot of space on paths. I mean, you should be having large, like, guest walkways and promenades and whatnot. It's nice, but I was doing that too much. So in this one, I toned it down a little bit. As you can see around the Velociraptor area, it does get a lot wider. I do wish I made it a little bit thinner, given the Velociraptor's a bit larger of an enclosure, but it is what it is. And it looks fine. I decorated it, so you didn't have to see it in the speed build because it's kind of tedious, but yeah, I did go ahead and decorate it off camera, and it looks okay. But yeah, so yeah, if you just go back, if you look at what you like, what you didn't like. So for this one, something that I've liked is my enclosure design, especially with the dimetrodon enclosure. So the way some of these, like the T-Rex riverbed, great, love that. The dimetrodon enclosure, love that. The one with the... it was one of the first... It's a medium carnivore. Oh, Megalosaurus, that's it. The Megalosaurus one I'm happy with. I like that one too. And they're the ones that I really like. The main one isn't too bad. The Mamenchosaurus Parasaurolophus. That one's okay, but that's like a blend of a lot of different styles. But yeah, that's... And then I can look at the ones I don't like too much, like the Velociraptor one, or the Changosaurus enclosure, or the Stegosaurus enclosure. They're ones that I'm not too happy with, and I can kind of learn from that to go, okay, what do I need to do next time to make sure that I don't make these mistakes again, so that I'm looking at this enclosure and going, wow, this is really nice. I like looking at this. I could watch the dinosaurs in here move around. I enjoy the aesthetics of this enclosure, rather than being, oh, what a waste of space. These poor animals, they have to live their entire lives in this crappy little enclosure. But that's my tip for this video. That's the tip of the day, pretty much. As you can tell, I'm running out of things to talk about, and we still got 6 minutes left in this speed build. So what I'm gonna do before I lose my voice too, because I can already feel it coming, I'm gonna end it here, because you know, you can enjoy the rest of the speed build. As you can see, we're now moving on to the last couple of enclosures. We've just finished up in the aviary. So yeah, you can have take the time to, I don't know, learn what not to do with the Changosaurus enclosure, and then learn what to do with the dimetrodon enclosure. But I'm going to thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget, like, subscribe, please. I'm begging you. No, I'm not that desperate. It's all good. Do what you want. Your freedom. You choose. I don't know where I'm going with this. It's weird. But yeah. See ya. Have a good one. Bye. Ciao.